From an American enthusiast perspective, the name Vekoma almost instantly gives me a headache. Every other park I go to has a boomerang, an SLC, or sometimes even both. Besides these two infamous models, America has a grand total of 4 Vekoma coasters that are not explicitly marketed to families or children. Headaches are truly all we have to go by in America, but overseas is an entirely different story. In my video called The Impending Intamin Renaissance, I went on record saying that I believe Intamin is primed to make a bull run at the American coaster market, but I failed to mention one giant hurdle they may have to overcome. If any company has a chance of standing up to the overwhelming innovation and power that Intamin can bring to America, it is, in my opinion, Vekoma. Normally in these manufacturer videos, we ignore the overseas market and focus on what exists on American soil, but this one is a little different. Take a minute with me to look at what models Vekoma has that have yet to be built in America to get a better picture of what they have to offer once they come here. First, I have to address the family rides, so let's start out with one that might actually open in America if Disney can finally get their crap together. The Vekoma motorbike coaster is exactly what it sounds like, a coaster in which riders sit on a motorbike style seat and go around the course. Probably the most famous coaster in this classification was made by none other than Intamin, that being Hagrid's Magical Creature Motorbike Adventure at Universal Orlando. While this ride model is seemingly trending recently with 3 opening next year in America, 2 of those are being made by Intamin for SeaWorld. Vekoma is making the 3rd one, however, working with Disney to establish a small competition base for Intamin's newest straddle coaster obsession. Moving on, the family boomerangs took a few good things about the original boomerangs and gave them a totally modern spin. Once proving successful, Vekoma sought to innovate on the concept with not 1, but 2 more models. Firstly, they came out with their Rebound variation, which ultimately became the definitive version of this coaster after its debut. This ride model does exactly what the original boomerang craze of the 90s did, allowing parks to order a cheap ride with a small footprint and a low height requirement. In my opinion, this coaster will do amazing in American markets for parks of all size. Heck, I'm a fan of Cedar Point's decision to build the Wild Mouse, but I honestly would rather have them build one of these family boomerangs. This model is one of the main reasons I want to head to Energylandia, besides Zadra, of course. Did I say I'm looking forward to a boomerang? Dang. I mentioned Vekoma innovating twice on the Family Boomerang in 2016, so allow me to introduce you to the Family Boomerang Racer. Only one of these was ever made, which is sad to me because it looks like they took the logical evolution of both racing coasters and boomerangs and smashed them together. The model is still on Vekoma's site, however, so I have hope that more will be made. If it isn't clear what this ride model is, imagine 2 family boomerangs racing. The thought of this model fills me with kid-like joy, to be honest. I mean, imagine passing the other train in the last backwards section and cheering as you pull into the station. It just genuinely sounds like so much fun. Vekoma has 3 models of family coaster that I want to brush over quickly, as even their own website doesn't focus on them too much. These models are the Suspended Family Coaster 400, Suspended Family Coaster 450, and the Family Coaster Indoor. All of these seem to be relative clones of each other and look to be good for the families, I guess. The last family coaster I need to talk about is the more traditional family coaster as you'd think of one. Family Coaster 335 is what these rides go by, and they're quite the hit for Vekoma, having built 12 of them. I think these rides look fun enough, and if I have kids one day, I believe these rides would be a great transition from smaller rides into more thrill-based rides. I definitely think these have a defined place in the market, and I hope to see some more of them pop up. This wraps up Vekoma's family lineup, except I kind of lied a bit. Dollywood is getting an all-new family multi-launch in 2023 called Big Bear Mountain. There have been plenty of videos on this topic, including one of my own, so I'm not going to go super in-depth, but this is going to come back up later, so I just had to mention it. Heading on to thrill coasters, every single coaster I'm about to discuss actually looks phenomenal to me. I cannot wait to get to Europe sometime to ride these things. Let's begin with the Lech coaster. Forgive me any pronunciation mistakes I make, please. English is my only language. On paper, this ride doesn't impress me much, if at all. But that POV impresses me. The 131-foot drop takes a strong 90-degree turn and dives through a rock tunnel before heading right into the first inversion this ride has. A twisted airtime hill quickly follows, which is chased by a straight airtime hill before an amazing corkscrew through the top of the station. Thank God for block zones, am I right? Anyway, some big turns lead to another airtime hill and yet another corkscrew before a wave turn and some spaghetti bowl style turns lead to the brake run. This coaster, or coaster model since technically it is offered as customizable on their website, has the potential to be the best at many parks across America. Semi-hot take inbound, Kennywood should have ordered one of these instead of Steel Curtain. Next up, we have what I consider to be the closest thing to an Aero Looper since Aero went out of business. The Hyperspace Launch Coaster is not a launch coaster like the name implies, but a looping coaster with a dash of airtime and some other elements thrown in. Watching the video currently on screen genuinely reminds me of if Aero was still around but without the headbanging restraints. I don't have all that much to say about this model, but I can see how they would easily fill the looping gap left behind in parks lineups as Aero loopers go out of service life. That's it, on to the next one. Remember everything I said about the Lech coaster? Take that, make it taller and faster, and add a stall. That's essentially what the Renegade looping coaster is. Only one of these exists, but seeing as it is fundamentally very similar to the Lech coaster, everything I said for that one applies to this one as well. I do prefer this if the park has space, and that's literally only because of the stall, but it still looks really cool. Oh, did I mention that this coaster pulls 4.2 Gs? This is truly a thrill coaster to be reckoned with. Okay. Remember when I said Hyperspace Warp wasn't a launch coaster? Well, the Space Warp launch coaster is. Great naming, Vekoma. Anyways, while this isn't the fastest launch ever at just below 50 miles per hour, it reaches that speed in 2 seconds flat. The rest of the layout seems absolutely lovely to me, with a sidewinder right after the launch, a corkscrew, an above ground tunnel, and another corkscrew. This model kinda combines everything I like about every model I've talked about thus far into one coaster. It feels like an insane launch into an Aero style layout with some turning similar to the Lech model. I cannot wait to ride this one day. Take everything I just said and then apply it to the Top Gun launch coaster model, except add 10 miles an hour and make this coaster significantly harder to ride. It's harder to ride because all of these are sadly in China, so the credits are really hard to pick up. This model perfectly encapsulates what has made Vekoma thrill coasters so cool in my opinion. On paper, they all seem very similar, but by looking at the ride footage, I can tell that they all serve very different markets, purposes, and thrill levels, meaning almost any park could buy one, if not multiple Vekomas to fill gaps in their lineup. The last type of Vekoma coaster I want to discuss is what I call the revenge coasters. This encompasses 3 thrill models that are either making their comeback or are a significantly upgraded version of a model Vekoma has made in the past. First up, we have the suspended thrill coaster. Better than its aging grandfather, the SLC, in literally every way, the STC is designed to be a higher thrill version of a suspended family coaster that Vekoma also makes. I might have a soft spot for this ride because I love zero-G rolls, but it looks like it would be a blast to ride. It is honestly the one out of the 3 revenge models I am least excited for though. In 2001, Vekoma debuted the Flying Dutchman model to mixed reception. In 2009, they debuted the Stingray, which was considered a flop with only one ever being built. So they took an 11-year gap from the flying coaster market, and in 2020 came out swinging for the fences with Fly, or FLY, whichever works for you, I guess. You know, I'd refer to the POV on this one, but since no POV actually exists, I'm technically going off ride footage and the RCDB page with accounts of people that have ridden it only. I hear this ride is amazing, nearly a perfect ride, and a bucket list must. To quote Taylor from Coaster Studios, if humans could fly, this is probably what it would feel like. I feel like that sentence alone sums up how awesome this ride is. The last revenge coaster I need to mention is the Tilt Coaster. Vekoma made one of these in China in the early 2000s, and then the idea kind of stopped. A couple other manufacturers tried it, but it was a short-lived trend and it died, at least for a while. Rumors have circled of America getting a tilt coaster in the next few years for a long time, and Vekoma has a prototype at their factory as we speak, so we for sure know that one of these insanely innovative models will be coming somewhere in the relatively near future. So where does that leave Vekoma in reference to America? Well, as I mentioned earlier, they are opening a family multi-launch called Big Bear Mountain at Dollywood next year, as well as a motorbike coaster at Disney which will be themed to Tron. They also might be working on a tilt coaster I just mentioned, but we don't know that yet. The way I see it, if Vekoma can get their foot in the door in the family market through Dollywood and the thrill market with their tilt coaster, they would almost instantaneously become a heavy hitter in America. Unlike Intamin, they do not have a history of injury and death to overcome. Unlike B&M, they actually innovate. Unlike Mach, their launches pack a punch, and unlike RMC, they won't need to pivot their flagship rides for quite a while. To sum it all up, Vekoma was basically chased out of America for their subpar rides, so they spent 10 to 20 years training hard to re-earn their seat at the table. Whether or not they will have the chops to make a huge splash in the American coaster market remains to be seen, but one thing is for sure, they have the talent, variety, and innovation to make it happen. Only time will tell. Please consider subscribing if you make it this far. I'm Josh from Station Wait. Have an absolutely great day.